Hello there. Are you currently preparing for SAT or you're thinking about writing the test in the future? And do you know what the test is all about? The format, that is the question types, timing, and the scoring. If you're looking for answers to all of these questions, then this video is for you. My name is Isaac, and I'm going to walk you through the basic format of SAT. I'll be showing you in a moment the different kinds of questions you get on the test, how the test is structured, and how you'll be graded. But before we look at that in detail, this is a very important question you need to consider. Who can take SAT? So SAT, or SAT as it is commonly known, stands for Scholastic Assessment Test. It is a standardized test widely used for college admissions in the United States, Canada, and some other countries. So we can compare SAT or SAT to UTME in Nigeria. And the owners of this test, the organization that owns this test or administers this test, is College Board. Just as in Nigeria we have JAMB in charge of UTME, so also we have College Board in charge of SAT. Now, what is the purpose of this test? The test measures a high school or secondary school student's readiness for college or university. Now, don't forget, high school and secondary school are the same. In US, you have high school, while in other countries like Nigeria or UK, you have secondary school. In the same way, you have college. In some countries, you have college, while in other countries, you have university. In Nigeria, for example, we have university, but if you go to US, some of the universities are referred to as college. So, SAT assess critical reading and writing and mathematical reasoning skills. That is, the test is just to prepare you for your university program. Alright, and you must not be in secondary school to write, or you can still be in school. Maybe for those who are in Nigeria, if you're in SS2, SS3, you can sit for the test. And even after your school, after your secondary school, you can still take the test as long as you want to go to college and your college requires it as part of the requirement for admission, then you can take it. There is no age restriction, at least as long as you say ready to sit for the test. You can write a test if you're 15, 14, 15, 16 years old, you can sit for the test. And you can be as old as 20, even 30, and still write the test. So there is no strict age limit, except maybe you're not in your teens yet. Okay, now before we look at the structure of the test, I want to draw your attention to a very important thing you need to take note of. SAT is now fully computer-based test. The test was revised some years back. It's been about 4 years or so. And before then, the test used to be pen and paper. So candidates would go and write their answers on the answer sheet, and the questions were given them. You have a hard copy of your questions. All of that has changed. Now you're going to write your test on computer. Just as the mode of administering the test has changed, so also are the questions and even the structure of the test itself. In the past, in the reading and writing part of the SAT, there used to be two main sections. One of the section was called reading. It was called evidence-based reading. And there you will have about 5 passages, and you were given 55 or thereabout 55 questions or so. And then there was another section called language and writing. So the language and writing section was basically to test your understanding of the basic elements of English grammar, such as punctuation, verb tense, pronouns, and so on and so forth. In the math section, there were also two separate sections. There was a particular part where you use your calculator, and then there was another section where our calculator was not allowed. There was also an essay in the old test. That has changed. The new test now, although it still has the two main sections of reading and writing and math, but the subsections are not the same as in the old test. For example, in the reading and writing section of the new SAT, you have the reading comprehension and reading and writing fused together. So the reading comprehension and writing or editing and all of that, the sections are fused together. The passages are not different from the section of reading and writing. And in the math as well, everything has been fused together. In addition to that, the number of questions has reduced, so you don't have to answer so many questions on the new SAT test. And yeah, as the questions are now less, you also have less time to sit for the test. The duration of the test is now less. You don't have 4 hours or 3 hours. The test as a whole will last for just maybe 2 hours and 14 minutes. That's the total time you get for the test. So it's way shorter than the old format. This is important because some of the old materials are still very much in circulation. You might see them on the internet, or you can go to a bookstore. You want to buy a practice material for your SAT, and you might just pick up the material that has the old test format. Now, don't get this wrong. The skills that are tested are still the same. The old test was just to prepare you for college. The new SAT is still doing the same thing. So the skill that these questions on the SAT are set to evaluate have not changed. For example, you'll be tested on your reading comprehension, punctuation, verb tense. That is still very much the same what you're going to do on the new SAT test. The difference here is that you don't have to answer so many questions anymore, and you don't have to spend a long time doing the test. Okay, so let's see. I have a table here to show you very quickly the format of the test. Now, the components, you now have reading and writing and math. These are the two major sections in the test. In the reading and writing section, you're going to get 2 modules, or you can say 2 subsections. The first module, you're going to answer 27 questions within 32 minutes. In the second module, you also have 27 questions and you're given the same amount of time, 32 minutes. After the reading and writing part, you will get a short break, 10 minutes. Then you will answer questions on the math section. The math section also is subdivided into 2. You have the first module with 22 questions. The second one also has 22 questions, though you get more time on the maths. So you're going to get 35 minutes per module. Overall, you're going to have 4 modules, that is 2 for your maths, 2 for the reading and writing section. And you will get 2 hours, 14 minutes. That is minus the break. If you're going to add the 10 minutes of short break, you will have about 2 hours, 24 minutes for the test as a whole. All right, I hope that makes sense. And then for the grading, well, the SAT score undergo different conversion method. You have your raw scores, that is the total number of points you get, the number of questions you answer correctly. All of that will undergo various conversion and evaluation to give you your final score. So what I have here on the table is the final score you get. You're graded from 400 to 800 in a section. So the reading and writing section, you'll be graded from 400 to 800. The math section, you have 400 to 800. So in total, you'll be graded, you have a total score of 1600. All right, that means if you get 800 over 1600, it means you got 0. Yeah, so that's it. If you get 800 over 800 in each section, then you have 1600 points, and that's a perfect score. Remember, there's no more essay, so the essay is not here. The new test has no essay. The essay part has been taken off completely. One way you can know whether you're dealing with the old question types or the new question type is to look at the length of the passages. If you take up a reading material and you see the passages are lengthy and you have more than one question per passage, then you're reading the old question material. The new test has just short passages and you get 1 question per passage. You're not going to answer 2 questions per passage. 1 passage, 1 question. Okay, so you take note of that. I mentioned earlier that the skill or the skills and the topics tested on the test still remain the same. Now, in the reading and writing part of the test, the skills can be split into 4 categories. First, you have questions on information and ideas. You get questions on craft and structure, expression of ideas, and standard English convention or conventional standard English. In the math, you're going to get 4 categories as well. There is algebra, advanced math, problem solving and data analysis, geometry and trigonometry. These are the categories or the various areas where you'll be tested. And you can pause the video now. You look at where the questions are coming from or what kind of questions you will get to evaluate all of these skills. Okay, in this section, I've decided to rephrase the questions or the categories in a way that it will be easy for anyone to relate. And I've decided to put the order in the same way you're going to have your questions on the day of the test. And I'm going to focus on the reading and writing part. I don't do mathematics, so I'm going to focus on the reading and writing section of the test. The first set of questions you will get on the day of the test will come from vocabulary in context. Now, what this simply means is that you get a short passage with a blank, and then you get in the options 4 words, and you're asked to choose one of the words that will complete that blank and produce a logical meaning. Basically, they are testing your understanding of words or meaning of words. Then you have reading comprehension. You're going to get short passages. Remember, the passages in the new test are very short. At most, you get 150 words or sometimes 70 words, a paragraph, or at most 2. You read this short passage and you answer one question per passage. Infographic questions. This is a question type where you have to interpret information presented in a diagram. You will read a short text plus an infographic, and you analyze whatever is presented in that chart or table or graph, and that will enable you to answer the question you're given. Logical reasoning questions. These questions that has to do with critical reasoning. You get a short passage that features logical argument, and you're asked to read the text carefully, follow the logic, and then the question prompt will ask you what to do. Sometimes the question asks you to complete the argument or weaken the argument, or sometimes you're asked to support the argument. So all you need to do is read the passage carefully, make sure you're following the premises and the conclusion presented, and that will enable you to either support or weaken. And if maybe the argument doesn't have an overall conclusion, it might just be that you're supposed to complete the argument by providing a conclusion. So you look at the options and you find which of the options best fits the logic presented in the text. After that, you get questions on convention of standard English. This simply has to do with your understanding of the elements of English grammar. You'll be tested on punctuation, subject-verb agreement, verb tense, pronouns, and antecedent. So a lot of what you did in your primary and secondary school will help you here, like your topics in English language subjects will help you how to use punctuation. So you're basically editing. You have a text and you're asked to figure out which of the options will best complete the text and conform to the convention of standard English. Then you get transitional words or phrases. Now, this question will test your understanding of linking words or phrases that connect ideas. You have words such as however and although, since, still, and then you get phrases as well. You can get on the other hand, in addition, furthermore. These are basically phrases or words that serves as connection or links. They signal a transition from one idea to another in a text. So if you have a passage or you're writing an essay and you have different ideas to present, you're definitely going to use any of these words or phrases to connect these ideas. So you'll be tested on how well you understand how to use such transitional phrases or words. The last set of questions you get are from rhetoric. Now, rhetoric has to do with how well to use language, how well you use your words or phrases to produce a particular meaning. So you're going to get a prompt telling you that a student why in a class of anthropology or a class of history took the following notes, and then you get a couple of notes. Then the question prompt to tell you, now the student wants to reorder these notes in order to achieve a particular meaning. How best should the student organize the notes? That's what you find in the option. So you just look for that particular option that conforms to that particular idea that the question prompt is emphasizing. Okay, I'm going to show you examples of all of these questions. But before I do that, just a quick recap. SAT is basically one of the requirements for college admission, and the test prepares candidate for university program. Anybody can write the test. You're not too old to sit for SAT as long as you want to go to university and your university requires it as one of the prerequisites for admission, then you can sit for the test. SAT is now computer test, so you're not going to use your pen and paper anymore. Now, talking about computer test, the College Board, like the owner of the test, have an application or a software they call Blue Book. You are supposed to go with your device to write a test. That is, you're going to provide your own device for the test. Your laptop, you can go with your laptop. If you don't have a laptop and you want to use the College Board, you want the College Board to provide you, or your center to provide you with a device, then you will have to request for that in advance. But this is it. You have to get the Blue Book app. You can get it on the Windows Store or Suite. You can get it there, or your Mac. If you're using Apple device, you can find it on Apple Store. You download that app on your device, install it, and create a profile, or you create an account. Now take note of this. If you're creating an account on Blue Book, make sure the data or information you're putting in there is genuine and corresponds with the information you have on your certificates. For those who are in Nigeria, you have to use your international passport. So your passport is the only means of identification, and the information you have on your passport should be what you put while you're filling the form for your account on the Blue Book app. That is because you're going to use that app to write your test. And the profile you have on that app will reflect on your result sheet. So if you use a different name or names that are not yours or your nickname, that is what is going to appear on your certificate or your result sheet. So make sure that while filling out the form to create an account on the Blue Book app, you're using accurate, and make sure the information there corresponds with all of the other data or biodata you have. You also find a lot of practice materials on that Blue Book app. Remember, your mobile device, such as your mobile phone, doesn't support that app. You can't use it on your mobile phone. It has to be on your desktop or on your laptop or your iPad or something like that. So make sure you get the Blue Book app, create your account, put in your data there, make sure it is correct, check it carefully before you submit, and then access the practice materials on that Blue Book app. Use it to practice. Good. So let's see. This is an example of vocabulary in context question. Here you have a short text with a blank, and you're asked to find one word in the option that will fill that blank and produce a logical and precise meaning. Okay, you can pause the video and try this. Now, if you get option B as your answer, then congratulations. But why is option B the answer? This basically has to do with your understanding of words. Remember, words can have different meanings based on how they are used in context. So if you know a word for just one meaning, then you might struggle with these question types. It is good that you have a rich lexical resource and you know the meaning of words, not just one meaning. So for you to do that, I will advise that you practice with authentic questions from the College Board, and as you read or you do these exercises, pick out some words that are new or strange to you. You look them up in the dictionary, and once you get a meaning of that word that fits the context in which the word is used, then you will note it down. That way, you will be able to build your lexical resource. You'll be able to learn new words, and you're less likely going to forget, because learning meaning of words in context helps you to retain the meaning for a longer time than, say, just memorizing a list of words. At least for me, that doesn't work. By the time I get to number 5, I would have forgotten what the number 1 word means. So instead of getting a list of words to memorize the meaning, I will advise that you read or you practice. And as you do that, look at or underline certain words that are new or strange to you, look them up in the dictionary, and you will retain that meaning better. Plus, the text itself will make more sense to you Now, that being said, why is option B, fragile, the correct option? If you read the text carefully, you will notice that the test makers are leaving you clues. These clues are to guide you so you can identify the right word. Now, one of the clues is delicate, the word delicate, and break. The text itself says, many ancient sculptures of people's heads are missing their noses. This is because the nose is the most dashed part of a sculpture of a person's head. It is delicate. So, what is the it? The it is referring to the nose, the person's nose. It is delicate and sticks out from the rest of the sculpture, making it especially easy to break. Alright? If you understand the meaning of the word delicate, then this is going to be very easy for you. And even if you don't, there's another clue here. This is another hint. Break. That means the nose of the sculpture of a person's head is breakable or easily breakable. That means it is delicate. Something that is delicate is fragile. Now that's why the word fragile will fit in here. That is one way you're supposed to analyze your question. Now, if this is new or you find it a bit confusing, it means you need to do more practice and you need to build your vocabulary. I have a very comprehensive lesson that will help you build your vocabulary, also learn some tricks and short tricks you can perform to help you zoom in on the right option easily instead of just fusing over and over this text. It is possible that you may not know the meaning of all the words in the option, but of course, if you practice very well, you'll be able to devise a means to figure out the right answer without necessarily going through the stress of reading over and over and over and then maybe getting lost in the course of overanalyzing the text. Okay, here is another example, so you can pause and try this one. Okay, now this is an example of the reading comprehension question. Remember, I told you the questions will be ordered in this manner. First, you get the text completion or vocabulary and context questions, followed by reading comprehension. And this is an example of a typical reading comprehension. Now you notice that on top here there is a kind of instruction. Now the note here is telling us where the passage is taken from. So this text is actually adapted from Jean Webster's 1912 novel titled Daddy Long Legs. There is a high chance that if you've read different books, you might even see a text that you read before. Now that is not to say you must have an idea of what a novel or a text or a magazine or an article or a textbook is saying before you answer the questions on the SAT. No. even if the text you have on the day of the test is adapted or is an excerpt from a particular work, you don't really need to know about that work or that novel or that journal. No. All the information you need to enable you answer your question correctly is contained in the passage. The text you have on the test will contain all the information that is relevant. So you don't need to worry, you don't need to say, I'm not a literature student, so I've not read this novel, I might not be able to answer this question. No. Now, the other part is telling us what the text is all about. The narrator is a young college student writing letters detailing her weekly experiences. So this passage here contains information about a young college student. The college is organizing the freshman basketball team, and there is just a chance that I shall make it. I am little, of course, but terribly quick and wiry and tough. While the others are hopping about in the air, I can dodge under their feet and grab the ball. Now, this is a college student writing about their experience. Now, this narrator is talking about the college freshman basketball team selection, and she's just hoping that she will make it as part of the team. And her reason is that she possesses some of the qualities that are needed for the game of basketball. She's not that big or tall, but then she's wiry and tough. So she's just hoping that her qualities will earn her a place on the team. The question here is asking us to identify the main purpose of the text. So I believe this is straightforward enough. The text is simply about someone who is hoping to enroll or who is hoping to be picked for a basketball team in their college. Let's see which of the option agrees with that. Option A says to compare basketball with other sports. No, there's no comparison there. To provide details of how to play basketball, and not really. And to state how players will be chosen for the basketball team, not quite. So the overall idea here is to explain why the narrator thinks she might make the basketball team. Brilliant. So that's the option. That's the correct answer. The text is simply saying why this young college student believes she'll be selected as a member of the team, basketball team. Good. So for the reading comprehension, you usually get questions from these areas. They might be asking you to identify the main idea in the passage, or some questions will ask you to identify a function, the function of a particular sentence or sentences in the passage. You also get questions that will task you to make inference or deduction. Here is an example of a question asking you to identify a function of a particular sentence in the passage. So you can pause the video and read through. As you read, pay attention to that sentence that is underlined and try to figure out the relationship that the sentence has with the other sentences in the passage. That is, what is the connection between the sentence and the passage as a whole? Now, if you get option D as your answer, then that is very correct. The part of the passage that is underlined is simply explain how. No, that should be option C. Option C says the underlined portion offers a detail about how female cuckoos carry out the behavior discussed in the text. Yeah, so the text is simply talking about how these birds who don't want to, or these birds that don't want to raise their own chicks, they're not very responsible, they don't want to raise their own young, and they like to pass on the responsibility of raising the chicks to other birds. And how do they do that? They deposit their own eggs into the nest of other birds so that those birds can incubate the eggs and hatch and feed the chicks. That is very, very irresponsible. But the underlying portion is simply telling us how the female birds, female cuckoos, carry out that behavior. Now, how do they do that? When these female cuckoos notice that the birds or the other birds are out of their nest, then the female cuckoo will sneak in and quickly lay its eggs in the nest of this bird. That is what the underlying portion is saying. So option C captures that better, not D. D is talking about the reaction of the other birds, but the passage didn't talk about the reaction of the other birds, and not, at least not the underlying portion. So the underlying portion is simply describing how female cuckoos perform this act that is described in the text. Okay, here is an example of a question asking you to make inference. It can be most reasonably inferred from the text that the finding about the microorganisms community composition was important for which reason. So you can pause the video, read through, and then look at the options. Which of these options you think agrees with the information presented in the passage? Remember, when you're making inference, you're simply reaching a conclusion based on the evidence you see or you get in the text. The answer will not be written, or you cannot identify the answer in a particular spot in the text. Rather, you read the text as a whole and you squeeze out the meaning based on what you get, the information you get in the text. You're going to arrive at a conclusion based on the information you get in the text as a whole. That is the meaning of inference or deduction. Good. Here is another example of a reading comprehension question. You can pause and go through. You can leave the if you get the answer correctly, or if you think you know the answer, you can leave it in the comment section, and we're going to analyze it together. I'm basically trying to show you an example of how these questions are presented. So there's going to be another class where I will show you in detail how to approach each question type, because every question type requires a different approach or different strategy. Remember, these questions are not all the same, and they're not testing the same skill. Some of the questions are testing your comprehension ability, some are testing your understanding of words, some are testing your ability to make logical conclusions, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to show you in detail how to approach each question. So for now, you can just go through these ones and make your best guess. And if you know the answers, you can put them in the comment. Okay, here is an example of an infographic question. You have a table here with different data, and then there is a text. So the text is just an extension of what is presented in the table. The data presented in the table is further explained in the passage. So you look at the table carefully and then you read the passage. From there, you'll be able to get your answer. Let's get an example. The first thing you want to do is to look at the heading or the title of the table. It says a partial list of candidate species for de-extinction. Okay, now you have these various species. These are the common names. You have the column on your left has the common names. The middle column has the scientific names, and then the last column has the date that this species went extinct. The first one, Hawaii, died out in 1907. Okay, the Caribbean monk sea, according to the table, went extinct in 1952. The passenger pigeon, that's another species or animal, died out in 1914. The saber-toothed cat went extinct 11,000 years ago. Then there is the woolly mammoth that died out 6,400 years before present. Okay, now looking at the data here, I can say that the animal that died more recently should be the Caribbean monk seal. It went extinct in 1952, and that is the earliest we have on the chart. And the oldest, the animal that has been dead and gone for a long time, is the saber-toothed cat. It went extinct 11,000 years before present. That's long ago. Now, what is the passage saying, or what is the text saying? The text says the passage of time is among the many obstacles faced by scientists who are pursuing de-extinction efforts. That is, efforts to use breeding or mixture of cloning and genetic engineering to bring back extinct species. Specifically, researchers are concerned that the longer a species has been extinct, the less likely it is that a suitable habitat still exists for that species. Among candidate species for de-extinction, the problem would be especially concerning for the dash. Okay, I don't think I'm a very good reader, but if you read through carefully, you notice that the passage is simply making reference to what is presented in the table. And the data in the table shows that all of these animals are extinct, but others died long before some. And in the passage, the information is simple. Scientists are trying to see how they can bring back to life some of those dead and extinct animals. And one of the challenges they're facing is that The longer a species is dead and gone, the more difficult it will be to bring it back to life. And that is more so because there might not just be a conducive environment for that animal to live in anymore due to the changes that our world has gone through. It might just be that a suitable habitat for that animal is no longer in existence now. So bringing it back to life will be almost impossible. Now, if that is true, or if you consider that, then which of the following animals in the table will fit that category? Now, you will all agree that the saber-toothed cat will be likely candidate for not being able to come back to life through cloning or genetic engineering, because it died 11,000 years ago. And that is way, way, way farther than any other species. Good. So that is an example of how to analyze your infographic question. Okay. You can try this one. You can take a moment, pause the video, and try this one. Alright, so after your infographic, then you have logical reasoning. Remember, I told you that in logical reasoning, you're going to get a short passage that will present a logical argument. All you need to do is to read the passage carefully, following the logic presented, and the question prompt will guide you on what to do next. Remember, a typical format of an argument will be the premise and the conclusion. And also you sometimes get assumptions. So as you read through, you're paying attention to the premises, evidence that are presented, and then the conclusions, the various conclusions that are based on these premises. Let's read through. This one says, several artworks found among the ruins of the ancient Roman city of Pompeii depict a female figure fishing with a cubeb nearby. Some scholars have asserted that the figure is the goddess Venus, since she is known to have been linked with cubebs in Roman culture. But University of Leicester archaeologist Carla Brain suggests that cubebs may have also been associated with the fishing generally. Okay, they might have been associated with fishing generally. The fact that a cubeb is shown near the female figure, therefore. Okay, so what is the logic in this argument? There are two parts here. The first part presents a premise and then a conclusion. The second part has a premise and then we're looking for a conclusion. And the conclusion in the last part of the argument is supposed to question or contradict the first part of the argument. Now, what do I mean by that? In the first part of the argument, the text says that an artwork or several artworks found among the ruins of the ancient Roman city of Pompeii show a female fishing and there is a cubeb nearby. Now, some scholars, based on these findings, concluded that the figure that has been found must be Venus, the goddess, the Roman goddess. And why? Because the Roman culture associated cubeb with Venus, or in the Roman culture, Venus was associated with cubeb. Therefore, since there is a figure and it's a female figure with cubibs, it must be Venus. Now, there is another position presented by the archaeologist, and the archaeologist says cubibs may have also been associated with fishing generally in Roman culture. Now, in that case, we can just conclude that the figure is the goddess Venus, because if cubibs were associated with fishing generally, then anybody could be with a cubib as long as they are fishing. So, in that case, the conclusion of the second part of the argument is casting doubt on the first conclusion. Option A will be the best answer because it says, it is therefore not conclusive evidence that the figure is Venus. So we need further clarification to say for sure that the figure is Venus, because now there is another claim that cubibs were associated with fishing as a whole. So you can say for certain that the figure that is found with cubibs must be the Roman goddess Venus. Good. If this is a bit complex, don't worry. I'm going to break it down in the next class. I will present a detailed description of arguments, the various components of an argument, and what you're supposed to do to enable you figure out your answer easily. Okay, here is another example. This one says, which finding, if true, would most directly weaken the astronomer's claim? So here, the question is asking you to weaken an argument or to weaken a conclusion. So you have to read your text carefully, identify what the claim of the astronomer is, and then find out from this option which of the premises presented in the options here would cast doubt on the astronomer's claim. You can leave the answer, drop the answer in the comment section if you get it. All right, now, once you're done with the logical reasoning questions, you have convention of standard English questions. Remember, I told you earlier on that in this section, the questions you get here will test your knowledge of the basic elements of grammar. And those elements that are tested are basically verb, that is your verb tense, subject and verb agreement. You also be tested on your understanding of pronoun and antecedent, that is the noun that the pronoun is standing for. You also be tested on punctuations. Under punctuations, you'll be tested on commas, use of commas, colon, semicolon, hyphens, apostrophe, and occasionally you get question marks. So these are the punctuation marks that will be tested. You will also be tested on modifiers, the use of modifiers. Modifiers are basically words or phrases that describe or give more information about nouns or verbs. So you're going to get participial phrases, appositive nouns or phrases, and relative clauses. These are modifiers, the kind of modifiers you get on the test. In this question type, you're being tested on your understanding of verb or verb tense. How do I know that? If you look at the options, you see that all of the options are verbs. Now, this is a good sign that the question is testing your understanding of verbs. Now, if that's the case, you don't even need to read the whole text. You can just start reading from the nearest sentence. Then you pay attention to the subject of the sentence and then the verb that should be appropriate for that subject. In this case, I have a complex sentence. So the main clause is up here, and then I'm getting a modifier. I'm getting a modifying phrase here, and it has a relative clause in it. A writing technique that emphasizes by repeating a statement in a reverse order. So this writing technique emphasize or create emphasis. If I say create, then I have to find out what the subject of this clause is. And the main subject is a writing technique. This one is a relative pronoun qualifying this writing technique. And since the writing technique is singular, I have to get a singular verb here to agree with my relative pronoun. So the relative pronoun here is making reference to the noun technique or writing technique, and I have to get a verb that will agree with this pronoun because the technique is singular. That means the pronoun will also be singular and the verb that follows it will also be singular. So we have creates. Creates is the singular form of the verb to create if it is used in the simple present tense. So to create, if used in the simple present tense with a singular subject, will have S. So that is creates. My sentence will read, it is an example of antimetaboly, a writing technique that creates emphasis by repeating a statement in a reversed order. Good. So this is just about subject-verb agreement and verb tense. So that's it. Here you have the options with a lot of punctuations. You have columns, semicolons, and comma. So you can pause briefly and attempt this one. That is, you need to understand the functions of commas, how to use semicolons, and how to use columns in writing. If you know the correct answer, leave it in the comment section. This is yet another one. This also has commas, a lot of commas, punctuation, semicolons, and columns. You can try this as well. Now, if you find all of this difficult, then you need to keep watching, because I have a lot of comprehensive tutorials that will break down the uses of all these punctuations with copious examples that will enable you master and perfect your use of punctuation marks. There's another one. You can try this as well. Don't forget, just leave the answers in the comment and we're going to review them. This is an example of a pronoun and antecedent. So you're looking at the question, you figure out which noun this pronoun is standing for. Remember, pronouns are words that use in place of nouns. And the pronoun and its antecedent, or the noun the pronoun is representing, must agree in terms of number, gender, and all. Sometimes the pronoun can be a subject case or object case. That is, if the noun the pronoun is standing for is also reflecting the subject case and object case. Okay, then move on now. This is an example of modifier. It's testing your understanding of modifiers, how to use participial phrases or relative clauses and appositives to modify nouns. Okay, you can try this as well and leave the answer in the comment. This is another one. And okay, this one is an example of a transitional question. Transitional question. Here you have the options with transitional words or phrases, and you have to identify the right word or phrase that will link these ideas logically. Let's look at this together. When you read, remember, a text may have a couple of questions, a couple of sentences. Each sentence will present a particular information, and these ideas has to be linked together in a logical way. Etched into Peru's Nazca Desert are line drawings so large that they can only be fully seen from high above. Archaeologists have none of the lines since the 1920s, when the researchers spotted some from a nearby foothill, and they have been studying the markings ever since. Daesh archaeologists' efforts are aided by drones that capture high-resolution aerial photographs of the lines. Okay, so the information here is simply presenting a discovery and then what has happened since this discovery was made. And it seems work is still ongoing on this particular project. So the best transitional word here would be currently. Currently, you have currently, archaeologists' efforts are aided by drones that capture high-resolution aerial photographs of the lines. Something was discovered, and since then, archaeologists have been working on this particular project, and they are still working on it. Now they even have modern technology to help them. So the right word there will be currently, and that will fit in there perfectly. Okay, you can try this one. This one has instead, still, specifically, and second. So you read the text carefully and choose from the option which of the connecting word or phrase you think will go in that blank and blend very well with the overall idea in the passage. Okay, now the last types of question you get on your test will be rhetoric. While researching a topic, a student has taken the following notes. Now these are the notes up here. You have the notes up here. The question prompt then says, the student wants to emphasize a similarity between the two books by Xuan Tan. Which choice most effectively uses relevant information from the notes to accomplish this goal? Beautiful. Now, the first thing you want to pay attention to is the goal. What is the goal you want to accomplish? The goal is to establish similarities between two books written by Xuan Tan. In this question type, I will advise that you don't even bother reading the notes up there because that's going to take your time and you might even get confused if you get lost reading the notes. What then do you need to do? Come to the question prompt, read carefully, and identify your task. What exactly is this question asking you to do? For instance, here the question says, this student wants to emphasize similarity between two books, and these two books are written by the same person. And all you need to know is to find how these books are similar. You just go to the options now and you're looking for that particular option that presents similarities between these books. I can see option D with the word both. Both means two of them. And then both what? Xuan Tan's books, Tales from Outer Suburbia and Tales from the Inner City, both describe soiree events occurring in otherwise ordinary places. So these two books are based on fantastic events happening in ordinary places. Okay, so in that case you won't be spending so much time on a particular question. Remember, you have 27 questions and you're given 32 minutes. That is less than 2 minutes per question. And some of the questions will require you read a passage and interpret infographic before you arrive at your answer. That can be time consuming. So if you learn these tricks on how to quickly get your answers without spending so much time, it will help you a lot. You will be able to attempt all your questions and even have some time to go over and check, especially those particular questions that you are not very sure of. But if you're wasting so much time on a particular question, you might not be able to complete your test, and that will affect your overall score. Okay, so this is another example of rhetoric question. You can try this one quickly. Don't forget you can leave your answers in the comment section. Alright, so that's it about the format, the question type, the timing, and the scoring of SAT. I would like to mention here that your performance on the SAT will be determined by different factors. How well you perform on the first section of the test will determine what the second section will be. That is, if you do well on your first section, the second section is most likely going to have more complex questions. You need to attempt all the questions and don't skip any question. Even if you're not sure of the answer, make a best guess and move on. Don't just waste time. If you spend, say, 90 minutes on a particular question and you're not sure of the answer, it's better you leave it. Just pick whatever option you can and move on, because you might just waste so much time on that question and then you lose out on the other one. So don't waste much time on any one question. Attempt all the questions. Your performance on the first section determines what the second section will be. That is not to say the second section will be so difficult, but it is expected that the second section will be a bit more complex than the questions in the first section. So put in your effort, carefully read your question prompt before choosing your answer. And don't forget to follow. You can also like if you have benefited from this. Like and share, and don't forget to follow, because I'm going to put in here a comprehensive description of the questions you're going to get and the skill that you need to enable you ace the test. Thank you.